area. And in relation to this, I would like to underscore the commitment of the Ministry of Science, Innovation and Universities, which is underpinned by the undertaking of many initiatives in order to reinforce our position in quantum technology. Amongst them, the new complementary plan on quantum communication, which is integrated in 17th component of the plan for continuing transformation and resilience. It has 75 million euros, 55 of them come from resilience and recovery mechanism, covers all regions of Spain with the development of hardware and software, information, industrial innovation, and the integration into the European structure EuroQCI. And now, I would like to mention things that are closely related to my current responsibility. The State Agency for Research plays an essential role in the co-financing of these technologies in the European sphere. We participate actively in Quantera in the joint undertakings of chips and HPC so that we integrate ourselves in leading international ecosystems. Quantera, which was created in 2020, joins 9 agencies for financing and has supported more than 9 international projects. The state agency has contributed with about 5 million euros to finance 29 Spanish groups that work in cryptography, communication, sensors, and quantum computing. And also CHIPS joint undertaking, CHIPS JU drives the components and electronic systems, considering highly interesting the quantum chip technology and the classical enablers that are needed to scale up this technology. And in the joint undertaking for HPC, which was created to place Europe at the cutting edge, the agency has devoted 10 million euros to support the development of quantum technology such as CESGA and the Barcelona Supercomputing Center. In the national plan, as an agency, we finance projects in quantum technology from the beginning of the 2000s, and it has been after 2006 where we have experienced a very remarkable growth with a high diversification, reaching out to materials, information, and communication. And between the year 19 and 23, we have devoted like about 35 million euros to knowledge generation projects related to these areas with basic science, computation, quantum, photonics, sensors, metrology, and others. The investment in human resources has also been significant. More than 80 postdoctoral contractual agreements, and pre-doctoral in Juan de la Encierva and Ramón and Cajal, which account for roughly about 36 million. And we also have the financing for proof of concept projects with about 10 million euros devoted to this area. The subsidies devoted to the creation of research networks have facilitated the cooperation between groups, and the support to the transfer of knowledge and the public-private cooperation has come to fruition in different experimental projects. I would like to mention one, the KIA project, Empowering Power Computing with Artificial Intelligence, which is led by the Kilimanjaro Quantum Tech company, where the EuroCAD Foundation and the Barcelona Supercomputing Center participate. Recently, won one of the calls of the agency, the public-private call with €1.5 million for 3 years, and that combines quantum technologies with artificial intelligence. I would like to also to underscore the role of technological platforms that promote dialogue between the different stake parties, science, technology, and innovation. We have Disruptive Platform as financed by our agency that has a specific working group that deals with quantum computing. We also have Photonica 21, and this year we have financed the first platform devoted exclusively to quantum technology, which is called InduQuant. And please allow me to finish my words with an invitation. Spain has a real opportunity of becoming a European reference in quantum technology. From our agency, we work to identify the best ideas and to support the researchers with the greatest potential, trying to use to the best of our ability the public funds available to us. We have a limited budget, of course, but our priorities must be clear. We must invest in the people and the ideas that are building the quantum future of our country. So please help us to generate these vanguard ideas and in order to identify the most promising projects. This is the path we must travel together as an agency, scientific system, and as a country so that we do not miss the opportunities that the technologies are offering us all. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Ahora sí, vale. Muchas gracias por sus...
Thank you very much, Mr. Fernández de Labastida, for your words. Now, as you know, Quantum Spain was focusing on the supercomputing Spanish network, which is the most singular infrastructure that we have in Spain. We have Mr. Barren, who is responsible of the infrastructure at the Barcelona Supercomputing Center. Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm coming here as a sales speech, but for free, which is the access to the Spanish network of supercomputing. No fee to be paid. What is it? Well, an infrastructure, a singular scientific and technical center. We have 14 centers distributed throughout the territory. We are now have 16 supercomputers and 10 centers for data processing. And let's give the numbers to our network. These are the abilities and capacities that we have at the supercomputing network. We can carry out 337 and 15 zeros behind it, operations per second. That's what we can simulate. 180 petabytes of storage on a combined basis so that you can have an idea. It's 2.5 copies of the entire collection of movies at Netflix. And connected with high-speed connection, the best we have in Spain, Red Iris, and all this is offered through 2 competitive calls a year. Statistics of the last year, we have received more than 400 projects, as you can see, and it's a sweet moment. We just enlarge our capacity, so we've granted access to 98% of them, total or partial access, and then we have to cut down to get a higher number of users. But this number, the exaflop, is the number of calculations we can provide. We have 2 main technologies, GPUs on a classical basis. Any project can access the CPU resources. GPU, the latest have we given access in the quantum resources, and we just finished yesterday, besides, well, a few days ago. Here are some statistics for supercomputing HPC. We have this Mare Nostrum and these other supercomputers, and as you can see, there is a variation in power, capacity, architecture. What we're looking for is diversity. We don't want the same size for all. Anyone can choose according to their geography or their characteristics. It would be similar for data. I'd like to dwell on this further because it is not a well-known mechanism that we believe must grow. We offer storage space to make available for exploiting scientific data, instruments, research, whatever. If your laboratory or university has huge amount of data that wants to make available to the community on an open basis, or in specific conditions, we provide 200 terabytes up to whatever you need from 3 to 5 years. We're not a backup, okay? That's very important. It's not just for storage and backup. They have to be useful and accessible. Everything that is generated may be stored here. For example, we have 25 petabytes for genomes. The European Genome Archive has a full copy, which is available through these mechanisms. Sorry. Skipped one. And now what is quite fashionable besides quantum computing? Artificial intelligence, of course. So we have more than 4,500 GPUs at your availability of different features. As you can see, the names here. In the next months, it's not here. We added more 200,000 for AI to companies and enterprises as on a complementary basis. And now your issue, quantum computing, June this year, was still in 2025. We've granted access to quantum computing technologies. We have two BSC computers, one in CESGA and 3 simulators, as you can see. Of course, you will know what quantum emulators are about. And here are the characteristics: Mare Nostrum, Finisterre, and Caleula. And then we will have the 32 additional provided by CESGA. How do you gain access to this? I suppose you're more interested in this. We have 2 yearly competitive calls. This is the main one, 2 on a yearly basis for supercomputing, artificial intelligence, and quantum. And for innovation, this is more or less the same. We're just showing 2 different panels, but it's a competitive call with assessment and an access committee review, and the best will win the call. In the case of quantum, we want to grant access to everybody to learn how it works. It's every 6 months. The last deadline was met September. We sold last week, as I said. So on Monday, they can start gaining access. If you want to gain access, you'll have to wait for March until June. So we opened something which is called the fast access, so you needn't wait so long. It's a secondary mechanism to give access without priority, but that allows you to test out and have an access to the machine in a couple of weeks. It's just an administrative review. So all of you who missed the deadline and won't have access starting Monday, you can go through the fast access and we'll test it out, because we're just starting, but you may gain access without a priority assessment when the grantees give you some time. There's always some time in between, and then the next activities will open the call for next year. So we hope to see you soon, okay? More practical steps. Ordinary activities, the usual 6 months kind of activities that you know, and when the project lasts for a longer 6 months, which is our usual period, we facilitate continuation. If you're 2-3 years, there's a button you can click on to renew. And then we have the fast access. And one that is not so well known that I'd like to explain is a competitive advantage for the Spanish community. Let's imagine you submit a request to a European concept. Nobody sells, because these are just working on calls, and then you assess condition to the European project. If the European project is granted, then you have the guaranteed access to the resource, and if you do it in time, you submit the project with a guarantee, an extra that nobody else in Europe grants. We're the only national structure providing this service, and we believe we are going to increase competitivity. So when you submit a bid to supercomputing, quantum computing to European projects. Remember this mechanism guaranteeing access through the Spanish system. The deadlines and everything is accessible through the website. Who may gain access at the end? Anybody that deals in research, development, and innovation. It's not for company production, but they're welcome if they undertake research centers. We always have academia, researchers, startups, and new users without prior experience. So actually, it's more or less open to everybody, right? A summary of the quantum activities so far. We have 2 calls so far. We had 72 activities enabled at the emulators, CESGA, and Barcelona Supercomputing Center, 4,800 hours of access. I don't know if it's too much or too little, but we were being asked twice as much. We know there's a need, so we're going to continue with this access. And now it's open. 21% go to private sectors and 15% not for international users. And people don't understand this, but the res is in Spain, but also in Europe. And you know there is free circulation of goods and services and professionals. They gain access to the network, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said, yes, of course, you shouldn't ask. The rest of Europe didn't ask, and you won't be granted access, but in Spain we're going to do it. We're very proud. We provide access to the rest of European state members, and we have 15% of international users, and proud of it. How to gain access? Create an account. We have our intranet. You can access through the web. It's instantaneous. Create your own account. And then there are different types of activities, scientific areas. You choose, roll out panels. You follow a few steps. Everything is standardized. Everything is online. You don't need to submit templates or documents. And we all have pretty boxes ready for it, okay? Here are the characteristics for the technical assessment, the equipment, the project. You describe your team, everything, and then the external assessment assesses, and we choose the best, of course. I was told to tell you about the future. Well, the first that we have waiting is to add another quantum annealer. EuroQCS in Spain 15 days ago. The chip will come soon, and we hope to make it available in the next few months for the deadline in March or the next one. But we're expanding our offer with this quantum annealer, and you may not be so interested, but the next enlargement will deal with Mare Nostrum 5 computer with an upgrade of AI, twice the capacity, especially devoted to entrepreneurs and those for the private sector. You know that now you will have an enlarged capacity. Then we will upgrading data, AI, supercomputing, and the final map reaches 2021 with the enlargement to Mare Nostrum 6. That's a future Photoshop photograph, of course. We will see what it turns out to be. And beyond the rest, the Spanish network, well, it's the national infrastructure, of course, but there is an European infrastructure, and we act as bridging for small and medium projects, and a few large and extreme projects may gain access through RES. And then for large and extreme projects, we have the Europe, the HPC joint undertaking, and then the quantum computer will be enlarged and will act as a bridge. You may get started here, learn. As soon as you grow, we'll help you to expand your horizon to the European sphere. These are the European mechanisms available until now, very similar to RES, fast access, short projects, longer-term projects, everything that has to do with innovation is there. Well, we're not reinventing the wheel. Everything is more or less created already. And finally, just for you, what else does the rest offer? An annual users conference, a few hundred people with the most current topics. It's held in September. Yes. Next year will be October, Madrid, so you won't have to move around too much. And we also sponsor and contribute to the organization of scientific seminars. We believe it's very important that the community knows about RES, what you can do with AI, quantum, HPC. So you have seminars or congresses, and we can help you. Well, we have calls, and we help you in exchange of our presence as speakers, because we need to make publicity of a free service. Everything is financed, so the access at the end is free for you. We do charge something. We want you to acknowledge us and thank you at your presentations and communications and publications. We want to be acknowledged because, somebody will try to ask you how many publications have you given rise to, and the higher, the more money we get. So that's how we charge you. We want to be acknowledged, okay? And that's what it is. We're at the website, the social media, all the activities, LinkedIn, and we hope to continue. We're available, of course. And if there are any questions now or throughout the day, I'll be delighted to answer.
Muchas gracias, Uriol. Solo un apunte, y es que el ordenador cuántico llegará a 35 qubits. Hay 20 instalados ahora y ya se está instalando el de 35 ya para actualizar las slides en el futuro. No, espera, por si hay preguntas del público. ¿Hay alguna pregunta? ¿Tenemos tiempo de sobras? ¿Alguna curiosidad, lo que queráis saber?
Muchas gracias. Una cosa que me extrañó cuando dijiste el ejemplo.
Struck me when you gave us the example of a foreigner asking for access, and you told us that a Spaniard in Germany would have not got access. Don't you think that the same applies in this case?
No.
Well, we made the mistake of asking our ministry, and they said that we had to provide access. If a Spaniard goes to Germany and is denied access for being Spanish, they should put in a claim and they should be able to access. But nobody's done that, and no publicity's been given to it, but he should. We're not going to force Germany to open their access, Germany, France, or any other example, but it has to be reciprocal. But I say that we're a bit silly because we went and asked the question. And we are Spanish and European, and we wrote it, we published it, and we mentioned it. Good. Any more questions? I've got one which is for access of universities, access courses, hackathons. If we want to organize that, how should we do it? Well, the RES, the aim of it is research, development, and innovation. Training is not part of what we do, but I'll tell you differently. What we can offer, as I said, these are the capabilities of the RES, but the nodes in the RES, part of their capabilities are for their own use. So people that participate in the RES in their own time can offer, and sometimes they do, courses, hackathons, and pay for them out of their pocket, so to speak, and access to that activity. So you should partner with somebody in the RES and ask them to give you access, and then you'll be able to do it. Any more questions? Hello, good morning. My name is José Fernández from the CIEMAT. This is not a question. I want to thank the BSC for the amount of work it's doing in this field. We've involved in a project for some years, and thanks to the computing capacity that you're giving us, we can contribute very significantly to simulation and data processing of the CERN experiments, the large colliders. And I just wanted to thank you for your continued support. And I would answer thank you, because you do the work, and we have the easy job of having a machine, but you have worked and you've got priority access to the infrastructure on continued access, because this is validated every year at a steering board. And thanks to what you do, we can all move forward, because we say between 26 and 29 we're going to need these extensions. We've got Tiamat, we've got the National Spanish organization, we've got Gaia. We've got a lot of people depending on this. So I thank you in return. Any more questions? Not you. You've done your homework. No, Euro HPC, that is the quantum project that is going to incorporate soon. What percentage will be available through the RES, and what percentage will be available through Euro HPC? I'll jump in at the deep end. The Euro HPC will pay for 50%. The Spanish 50%, the current formula is 80-20. 80 for the RES and 20 for the rest of the network. And that's, I'm not sure, so it will be 80 of the 50%, or 40% of the ANILA will be covered by the RES. Any more questions? If not, we thank Oriol. Thank you.
A continuación tenemos la...
Next, we have the presentation by Andrés, Gómez, Tato from the Supercomputing Center in Galicia, and Javier from the University of Santiago de Compostela. They've coordinated what's known as the PAC3, the ecosystem area of the Quantum Spain project. Before you start, after this presentation, we'll have a coffee break, and then we'll have the panel discussions on science. I want to invite all participants in Quantum Spain before the coffee break, come over to the stage. We're going to have our portrait taken. When you're ready, Andrés. Good morning. My name is Andrés, and I'm here with Javier Mas. I'm going to begin with the support side of things. He'll explain training and other associated aspects. Oriol has made it easy for me because I can run through my slides very quickly. I was going to talk about calls. One of the commitments that we had was to open up through the RES to access. We did it in time. We achieved that. The first one was too quick, too fast. The second one was a bit more calm. But I would like to highlight that we have a public seminar to explain what the infrastructures that we have are and how they're used. Since there have been updates, I expect that next year, before we close the next session, we have another seminar to explain updates during this time. To give you a bit more of detail, I want to focus on quantum computers. The calls were 40 projects, including the both systems on the RES, and the second, it was 14. And we're trying to have more in the third call that will be closed next year. But in addition to infrastructure, computing, the quantum computers, one of the things that we have on the RES are simulators, which are a key component for the development of software that is later executed in the quantum computers to test out new algorithms that can go beyond what we can support today. One of the things that was developed was due to the synergy between the quantum communications plan, complementary plan, and the other plans. There was a gap regarding the infrastructure. It was not strong enough in the RES to support experiments software experiments using virtual systems and physical qubits in time. So a product called Conca was developed, which allows you to deploy a virtual structure with different architectures for experiments. It's open and it can be downloaded and installed on different infrastructures. And we're deploying it not just at the CESGA, but other centers of the RES, the BSC, Computize, Scale, and it will be available in all centers, we hope, by the end of the year. Now, what is this virtual QPU? Well, what we thought, and we prepared, we're open to suggestions or proposals for improvement. QPUs have 3 layers: application, then from the application to the QPU, and then the execution on the QPU. And we've divided it into 3 layers. First of all, interface with the client, then the part that interprets how a backend works, and then the simulator. The advantage is that by modifying certain simulators, this system allows not just to execute something separately, but it allows communication between QPUs. Classic communications, measuring in one place and sending the result to another, or by means of quantum communication, which is a facility that was not available in the RES centers. In the case of Skyley, they committed to incorporating commercial simulators. They've deployed 2 emulators in their computing architectures, but I've leapt ahead. This has run away from me.
Pero es que solo hay un botón.
There is only one button here. It's running away from me.
He hecho spoiler de todo lo que va a decir Javier. Una pena.
This is a spoiler of everything Javier is going to say. It's a pity. Anyway, jokes aside, let's carry on. I was saying that they have 2 commercial emulators with 2 different architectures of processors and 2 different computing systems, which we hope will be available soon on the RES. They were recently installed. The first one is based on Fujitsu simulator, ARM, A64FX type architecture, which allows emulation. The second one is an system called Evident Captiva, based on what you see here, and it guarantees that you can access. But this has different emulation systems. Probably simulations, superior simulations will be possible, but they'll be subject to errors. But in the case of the BSC, what they've developed is a system based on an algorithm that, an REG algorithm that is designed for large scalability. The BSC wants a system that is scalable, that can include a lot of qubits very accurately, and it's based on Julia in this case, and it's available within Mare Nostrum, but we've also done tests on the Fugaku and other computers, and I would like to highlight the difference between a standard library, where you see it improves temporary results and memory use results. And those of you who work in this field know that memory is one of the handicaps we have for simulation. Then we have, this has been presented several times, the computers. We hope to have 35 qubits soon, as Alba just said, at the BSC. And then we've got the CESGA infrastructure. Now, what's the percentage of use? Because this infrastructure was paid with regional funds, so it's not available 100%. Only 20% of its capacity is available on the RES. The other 80% is reserved for training and for local use through calls and then for research at the CESGA, although some of you here have agreements with us to do joint projects and you have access. I can announce, because we're in the final stages of it, that this computer is going to be updated next year. In June next year, we hope to have another one available. I can't say for sure because we're buying it. It's pre-arranged, but we haven't finalized the operation yet. One of the important things that this package included was the idea of creating a community, awakening interest in these technologies and access to computing. So one of the activities that we started this year in Pamplona at the meeting that Oriol mentioned for RES use, we had the first workshop devoted to use of RES quantum computers. We hope that this workshop is periodical and is incorporated within the activities of the meeting for users of the RES, and we have this workshop recurrently.
Lo más importante es de qué se habló.
But the most important thing is what they spoke about. What are the users doing that have requested access? You can see I've got a problem with this button. It keeps running away from me. We got, in addition to presenting infrastructures with greater detail, we've had applications associated with basic algorithms at mathematical level, basic self-computing. A very significant part was devoted to quantum machine learning, which is one of the possible fields where we can have quantum advantages, almost half of the sessions, and then things that had to do with physics, chemistry, or basics of computing from the point of view of computing itself. I encourage you to join the workshop next year and present whatever you like. And if you don't have access, we invite you to present stuff too. The technical side, this is one of the activities, most singular activities of the project. We have 30 people now working on support and development of areas associated with simulators. But what is most important is that they're distributed throughout Spain in the different supercomputing centers so that they're near you, so that you have a reference center you can go to when you need help. And if they can't help you, well, the other technicians can give you specialized help. In fact, one of the things that they did was they've set up specialized groups based on applications. So all technicians can't know everything. We have to specialize. So each group has a speciality. Some know about quantum machine learning, atomization, basic algorithms, access, and they've also generated flow books to train new entrants who don't have previous experience in these technologies that are available through the TalentQ platform. And I pass the floor to Javier.
Para avanzar, para...
Bueno, muchas gracias.
Good, thank you. I feel awkward if I have to look back at the slides. I'm Javier Mas. I'm at the Santiago University. It's been a challenge, fascinating challenge, and a privilege to coordinate the training program within Quantum Spain in collaboration with many people here in the room. And when 4 years ago the phone rang and José Ignacio Latorre phoned me from Singapore, he said to me, look, I'm preparing a project. I've decided to place a significant part of it, or devote a significant part of it to education, talent generation, and I've set aside 1.5 million euros for the 3-4 year period, and I thought that's good. That's a good start. What do you think what are you suggesting we do? So that was my question. Why have a transverse education program at all levels? This is not at universities. For the first quantum revolution, we didn't have to do anything like this. It was just a question of learning to hit the button or the key or use the laser. So why did we need this? Yesterday, I think it was Samuel from Inspiration Q said that we're sometimes over-educating people that don't want to know. The final user, all they want to know is how things work or how they can improve their balance and their profits. So that's a question that, well, we had to address. First of all, to know what we had, what story we wanted to tell and why. There's no definite closed answer to that, but probably we can say that in contrast with the first quantum revolution, in this period, the number of options is there's an open range of options, and there are many columns sensing, but within quantum computing, we don't really even know who's going to be the winning horse. So that means that there are opportunities if you know the rules, if you join the dynamic. So probably when we have a winning horse, the winner will take it all, and we'll have to be ready to leap ahead and join the winning team. But imagine, I mean, these are not portal computers. They're based on measures, for instance, on measurements. They might be based on measurements and not be what we knew conventionally. So we've got to be prepared for that. And the second quantum revolution is a conceptual revolution. It is a game changer. And society 100 years later has realized that we have to change the way we think and make it transverse, lateral to address massive data management. After that introduction, thank you for being here. It took a long time, 2 years later, with a budget, a small budget, factor 5, we started. And I'm going to tell you about what we've done in the past 2 years. There are other initiatives of ecosystems that we've collaborated with. So the first thing that you need to do is to develop a platform. It's like a diary or a planning book. It structures everything. And this is like a pyramid. The social base, the wider it is, the base is, the more it will nourish the top levels where the specialists are, people who are going to find the solution, the winning horse. So we realized, IBM realized, that's why it created these world schools with 40,000 people in them. We've got to take care of every level of the pyramid, and it closes down as people say, well, I don't want to take the next step. So it's like being in a lift, and you've got to take care from the bottom. The website has had quite a high level of traffic, which has grown. There are people that periodically visit to see what seminar will take place next Tuesday. So we've got a kind of small family associated with this. And now I've made the first mistake. I'll skip this. The lower layer training, basic training. This is a challenge because when you have a lot of seminars that try to explain quantum computing in 2 minutes, they start with topics and with cliches, and that's not a good start. So you got to start from the bottom, taking good care of concepts, and work with rigorous people. Training, education. It hasn't been the most popular layer, but we've made an effort. José María said on the phone to me, you've got money to do crazy things. I've known him for years. This is the last crazy thing, using illusionism to explain quantum objects. We've had a 4 Kelvin refrigerator, and we've made it work as it would work if you were measuring quantum properties, and it was hugely successful. The next tool we've used, we're very proud of, is called the Masterclass. It's a collective activity which has been possible because Quantum Spain structures this from top to bottom. The machine is at the top and users at the bottom. It's the first collective use of the machine. In a masterclass, when the CERN organizes these, it puts 4 institutes or communities or 5 together, about 200 people. They give them brief instructions about what's going to be done, and then they do a hands-on practical session based on CERN data usually, and the objective is to, and if everybody analyzes this statistically, when you overlay statistics, the signal is perceived better. That's what quantum technologies are about. In quantum technologies, we've run a Simon algorithm or some simple algorithm to see what the situation is. And at the end of the day, you put everything together and it's working so well, we've got a waiting list. The CERN, in fact, has called us to put this on their international initiative of masterclasses, which has been for astrophysics and other areas, and now they want to have one on quantum technologies. And they've commissioned us to do it. And these are the different groups that are working. This was a transverse initiative, including many different components, centers all over Spain who've coordinated in real time, and people have literally generated the data. In contrast with the CERN, where you download them, they've generated them in real time. So try to think what a quantum advantage is, or Simon, or any of these algorithms. Now, we move up the pyramid. Some people are satisfied with that, but others want a little bit more. So we've got what we call the initiation workshops. Some we've organized, others have been organized by other groups throughout Spain. And in general, our collaboration here has been through funding, basically. Sometimes we've been asked to send a technician from Quantum Spain, access technician, to give a talk, and it was a pleasure to see how they've collaborated, and all technicians were prepared to go to the nearest school or center to tell people about Quantum Spain and give them their perspective. And also we have, as Andrés has said, we've got our own library of videos and tutorials with programs. These tutorials, as Andrés has said, are the result of the training that the technicians, access technicians, have had, who were hired without training requirements. And the idea is, as soon as you know something, tell people about it. And the videos, the Nobel Prize winner produced this column. It's about 17,000 visits by now. These videos are made by hired people, by us, and I'm very happy with this library because it's also a collective effort. We say, who wants to say something? And people have raised their hand and have gone ahead. And let's go to the next level, which is a master, PhD level, professional level. Now, the cycle of seminars we've taken good care of. To produce a seminar cycle with recurrent people means that you've got to be very disciplined, and people should know we've got a seminar every Tuesday at 4 o'clock, and we should be very rigorous in the organization of those seminars. And the audience is about 50 in real time, and then more people watch on YouTube. Mario Moda, who's one of the contributors, said to me, I haven't got time to watch all the videos that you're producing. Some of them are very, very interesting. This is a legacy that is going to be very significant. And then we got the schools, advanced schools, we call them. Our contribution has been basically funding. We've organized some at Quantum Spain, and others have been organized by collaborators who've requested money, In exchange, we request here, and regarding conferences, we request normally, we ask for waivers. We set up give support for a conference, and we ask for 10 or 15 free tickets, and we distribute them throughout Spain based on transverse criteria. Not everybody should be from the same place, younger people first. And when these conferences are organized, the people that are granted by given a grant by Quantum Spain are recognizable because they're given T-shirts, backpacks, and the idea is to continue to generate a greater or larger community.
Here is an interesting initiative. All the master's students have contributed. We actually bribe them. We'll pay stay to the spring school at the Barcelona Masters. We'll pay for your lodging, and in exchange you'll give us information and data. What is it that you've been doing, what demand you have, and so on and so forth. And we set up all the information in the report. The report is available at Quantica 2025, and we'll update it this year. And so we have a better understanding how the master's degrees complement each other, the demand, the syllabus. And it's very interesting if you're interested in setting up now or gaining knowledge about the situation. And as I said, I hope we can give continuity. Unfortunately, Quantum Spain is not going to prolong for the time being. Well, there was another phase at TalentQ, challenges. Young people, what do we like? Well, of course, they like a wage and earn money, but challenges is something that they enjoy to showcase their best talent, and it's shown by the companies to propose projects. I know that some people give up some more lucrative earnings and go to this activity because of the projects that are so interesting, and everything you may think of is good. The hackathon is the typical meeting that they love. The young people love the hackathons, and the winner team of the hackathon has a majority of women. Look at them. We haven't had the gender analysis distribution. We lack the manpower for it, that's all. But at least you can see that the winning team of our hackathon had 3 girls and 2 boys. Okay, and there were prizes and awards for the best final degree reports and the ability to communicate by infographics. They've been very successful. They're awarded at the congresses that we finance. We ask them to award prizes, and they usually receive some kind of scholarship or grant, and they communicate about the prize at the Congress. And I'm finishing. It will be a pleasure to collaborate with other initiatives. In particular, we were participating in the International Quantum Science and Technology with the different collaborators that you can see on the slide. And it's an accumulation, joining of all the national initiatives that have to do to celebrate congresses, workshops, outreach sessions, everything. And it's been very pleasant to cooperate. Of course, the page will still accumulate a few incidents by the end of the year. You haven't finished, okay? This is November yet. So, little else to add. It's been very pleasant. It's been wonderful to collaborate with the people of Quantum Spain in this project. I think that for an educator such as me, it's a challenge which is a privilege. It's complex, open, and, you know, we're trailblazing here, and let's see what happens to the future. And I'll give the floor to Andrés so he can tell us what's going to happen or could happen from now onwards. this is finishing, and the spoiler is that we do have a problem with these bots. And okay, now, as I said, what are we going to do? How are we going to follow up on this? From the infrastructure point of view, we expect a quantum annealer funded by European national funds, and CESGA will incorporate a quantum computer that has come from the European Union. But this package deals with support and training. So how are we going to go on supporting you and providing information and training? It is very nice to say that Spain has placed itself at the 2 excellent schools in the Roche for quantum technology. BSC, the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, has participated in the QEA. I really don't know what it stands for, but this Quantum Excellence Center will work with other European quantum centers in the issues of access. And CESGA, our institution, participates at the Quantum Excellence Center with not very original naming things. It was called QuexQ, but we had to remove that. There were a copyright infringement problem. So this I know a little more about it. We participated in Germany, Ireland, the Netherlands, and Denmark. Thanks to the Quantum Spain project, we gain access to a joint international project, and now we work with the main areas of quantum technology and HPC computing, such as Munich Quantum Valley, because the participating center is the RCES, and we delved through the Quantum Delta program and other instances. In the case of the other centers, they want to continue. It's just that their financing lines are difficult. We're almost, we trust that we're going to get funding for coordination between Galicia and Portugal. Of course, those that are not very close to the border won't be able to participate, but we are in the border to Portugal, and we're going to participate in quantum technology, artificial intelligence, and Portuguese-Spanish strategic center, and the 3 centers that could participate because of the area of influence will be influence area, Computational, and we'll develop quantum computing and support for quantum technology and training, and especially the integration of technologies together with Portugal. Okay, I got only one slide ahead. And this is the future for training. At TalentQ, we've had an incorporation of the excellence centers at the QX, and we're working in a second initiative that Javier knows about it, of course, because he's the Spanish representative, the Quantum Skills Academy. And we hope to have a very relevant contribution to it, to the Academy. And as Javier said, we could only do this thanks to the great team backing us up, 80 people working all the time about it, and we led them jointly, and we have to acknowledge their effort, and let's give them a big hand because they deserve it. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, of course, to all the work you've been undertaking for Quantum Spain for several years. Thank you very much. It's been difficult times. You will know about it. We have time for a couple of questions from the audience. Hello, José from Skyle. I just wanted to comment on something that you said. The 2 emulators, the students are operative now and available in the rest as of this call, okay? I just wanted to know, to let you know that they're available. About the simulators, will they be compatible with Penny Lane or CERC? I'm Eva from Granada University. The simulators, in the case of Penny Lane, we need to manufacture the corresponding connector. I think they're available for 2 of them, but I don't really remember they're available as Scaly and Tenet. No, they aren't, but we could do it, you know. And for the others, basically, we have to create the connector between Penny Lane and the corresponding simulator. If you're interested, maybe we could do it. It's not excessively complex. With Circ, well, that's a programming language, and you have to translate this to the lowest level that are supported by the simulators. They're usually systems to do it. You may program in Circ and convert it to Quick, Open, Quasar, or something that is supported by the simulators. And I don't think I know whether it's supported by ours or not. Not for the time being. Hello, Patricia from QSMP, Quantum and at Communications. I wanted to ask of the online seminars, what participation did you have? What would you consider a success of attendance? No, I don't understand. We didn't understand the question, I'm sorry. They would only watch later on, or did you have live attendance to these seminars? What would you consider a success? What number? The numbers I have shown, the mean real time is 50. Sometimes 20, sometimes 100, as an average 50. And the accumulated mean viewership is 230 people as an average. There's been one that had more than 1,400 attendees, so very variable. Thank you. From yesterday, we already saw how important it is to train people. TalentQ is showcasing this. I have here somebody, would it be easy to set up a network for training? I believe it is strictly necessary to continue with this type of activities. Would you have it? Do you consider? Well, there's somebody else, Bruno, that has a lot of initiatives. He's coordinating the masters at Barcelona. We're meeting in Barcelona next week. Quantum Education Summit will be held next week, and we'll think about something, okay? I really don't know, but I think it could be said that as the first approach, what you have seen will be taken down. The call is finished, and we'll try to reassign a few that maybe preserve the platform. We'll try to keep it alive, maybe the notebooks. However, a fully integrated project like this with a global outreach, no. I'm very sorry, it's not financed for the future. That's the reality, quite deplorable, but that's the way it goes. Good morning, Eduardo Arancón from BSC Barcelona. Javier, Andrés, splendid achievements. If I could, wishing out loud, how many vocations you think you may have awakened, which is very difficult to measure? You're talking about the population pyramid. How many masters and PhD papers have been published in Spain in quantum computing? I studied these documents, don't know it off the top of my head. The document is available in our website of TalentQ, and there you can have access to all the charts and the data and the graphics. No, I don't remember the number by memory. I'm sorry. I can tell you the prizes, the awards we've had. 10 to 20 candidates per year, which is difficult to choose. But for prizes, I do remember, okay? I wanted to ask you of the quantum technologies, quantum computing technologies, which would you bet on the horse winner? Which is the promising technology? Come on. Would you dare to bet? If I knew, I would have purchased it already, you know. I wish I knew. No, I don't know. I'm sorry, no. I think that is too soon. I don't know who is going to be able to know which technology we shall experience in error correction, increasing the speed, increasing capabilities. I don't know. I don't think nobody can guess. A few years ago, I was betting on superconductors that have been evolving so quickly, but photons are being very much researched and worked upon now. Who's going to be the winning technology? I don't know. We just have to ready ourselves for any possibilities. There may be even a combination of technologies that we need at the end, so no. Yesterday we talked about choices and the hype and the benefits of hype, and there were different points of view, remember. I hope it will take longer, and it will be better. Right now, we have a melting pot with plenty of opportunities, great opportunities, not just to become like OpenAI, but if suddenly the winner will take it all, the concentration on resources of the winner will be fantastic, and the geostrategic balance will be lost. José Ignacio said it yesterday. As soon as the one machine solves the sure proposals, we'll get it all. I'd rather this situation lasts for longer so that we have a greater diversity of research. And we're only talking about quantum computing, but there's many other options. Hello. Thank you, Julia from Barcelona. I just wanted to make a comment. I liked very much the emphasis you laid on high-quality public, general public education and dissemination, not just the cliche of the Schrodinger's cat and all that. But this is very expensive. First, because it's not so easy to know and meet people who can explain and know about quantum. It's not so easy. And people who know how to convey this to the general public is even more difficult indeed. And the masters offer a possibility of playing around between training and bridging. So maybe the agency or financing entity could inject money into this, setting up laboratories, teaching laboratories that play this role so that students may learn about quantum concepts, which is not easy to learn about on paper, but having a hands-on experience so that they may act as a bridge to go from training to research. We try to set it up in Barcelona, and they could get closer to high schools and the general public so that what you present is truly quantum technology. This is entangled because I can show you with a Bell test and demonstrate that there is entanglement, high-quality things and educational activities. Well, of course, we wish to have the masters, and we're not just getting information. It was the commitment beginning. We bribed them, as I said, to send people to the spring schools in Barcelona. It's not only because of that. It was just the first example of collaboration in between masters. And in this case, it was financed by TalentQ. But of course, we'd like to have that possibility. Next week, we're going to talk about it in the Quantum Academy. There is a mandate for that the masters share their strengths, weaknesses, and look for improvement together. And the educational laboratories and hands-on practice has very much to do with it. Now has a full scale laboratory to train everybody in all the skills, so we have to join efforts. Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentations.
Hola. Bueno.
So let us start these last two sessions. These are the most scientific outcomes of the Quantum Spain project. There's many institutions participating, and to invite each one to speak would be impossible. That would be very interesting, but we just don't have the time. But we have experts as members of the panel, more or less following the line, but they're experts on quantum computing, and if there are general questions, I'm sure they will answer. We'll start the first roundtable focused on quantum machine learning, and We have Mr. Armando Pérez, a theoretical physicist and a professor at the University of Valencia, a member of the Crepuscular group. Antonio Acin, a professor of the ICREA Institute and the Photonic Institute, where he heads the department. David Zueco, professor of the CESGA and working at the University of Zaragoza. And Ana Sampera, professor of ICREA Information at the Quantum Group of Barcelona's Autonomous University, and José Ranilla, the professor of the Oviedo University, and Daniela Manzana, professor, teacher at Granada and leader of the Thermodynamics and Quantum Computing Institute and Charles I Institute for Quantum Computing. I just mentioned their institutions, but they will be explaining what the research group does in general speaking and how they work with quantum computing. Armando, please, if you would start. Thank you very much, Alba, for the invitation to this event. To me, it's a bit nostalgic. We're finishing the International Quantum Spain year, and it brings some feelings of nostalgia. What research do I work on? I would like to widen the explanation relating it to quantum Spain. At Valencia, in the east of Spain, we have different groups that are working in related issues at our institution, ICIC, and there is a group working in quantum algorithms to identify traces at the CERN or for calculation identification of high efficacy lines. A very interesting research. We had a debate with Michael Skanowski. Obviously, I couldn't make it. And then at the engineering school, let's say, there is a group to be working on today's topic, machine learning, but at a quantum level, quantum machine learning. And then there's another group working in metrology, quantum metrology. Werner Gesser and his students. And closer to my personal career, what are we working at? Well, there's several topics. Variational circuitry, properties of variation circuits, which are not, strictly speaking, machine learning, but one of the starting points. So we study the properties of these variation circuits, and also the expansion of the Ising's model. Ising's model has had many applications in many fields. Amongst them is also machine learning, both classical and quantum machine learning, and we are studying the different quantum phases. It's a very, very interesting model with very curious properties. And finally, we're also working and finishing a simulation in an imaginary time. And this is important. It is relevant to other procedures, for example, to overcome the problem of variation circuits that sometimes they sort of get stuck. And with the imaginary time evolution, you can minimize. And this is what we are looking for. And they always go in a given direction in these variational circuits, trying to minimize the number of steps. And that's why I do it thanks to Quantum Spain. It's been by means of quantum STEM that I learned about these fields of research and others further away from my area. We're collaborating with the Polytechnic University. We'll listen to Carmine afterwards. And this has been thanks to the initiative Quantum Spain. Well, thank you, Armando. Now, Antonia Thin from the Photonic Institute. Good morning. My group, the IFO, I direct the quantum material group. It's a reasonably large group. We deal with quantum information, and historically we try to understand the quantum properties of a classical analog because that's potentially useful to attempt different applications that are impossible with classical computing, computing and cryptography. And lately, we're also analyzing and considering quantum applications, and Quantum Spain has been very useful to grow in that direction. We had variational circuits for quantum computing, classical methods as well to certify that the simulator or quantum computer produces reliable results. So we worked on an issue of certification. And we've also had the inspiration on quantum for optimization classical algorithms. That's a little bit of what we've been doing.
David Sueco.
We'll carry on with David Sueco. My name is David. I'm from the University of Zaragoza. I worked in quantum technologies, the interaction between light and matter. And thanks to the resurgence of quantum technologies, we're looking for applications of this interaction between light and matter to build quantum computers. I'd like to say, although it's off script, today and yesterday there's been a lot of emphasis on education. I coordinate the Quantum Technologies Master course at the CESGA, and I'd like to thank Javier and Bruno. I don't know whether there's anybody else here for that. Yesterday we were told there was going to be a kind of quantum winter. I would like to emphasize the generosity of the community, especially education. In education, consensus here is that creating talent is very important. And as Javier has said, we're not just present in our own master's course, we collaborate with each other. There's going to be a meeting next week. This is going to be on YouTube. I wanted to emphasize the generosity of all the coordinators of master courses in Spain. Thank you, David. In fact, all this is recorded and we will promote it.
¿Se oye? Sí. Sí. Sí, mi nombre es Ana Sampera y yo soy de la...
My name is Ana Sampera from the Autonomous University of Barcelona. When we entered Quantum Spain, we decided to do something halfway between quantum simulators, there's experimental platforms that generate data, and machine learning. You got data, you want to know where they come from, because that's how physics works. And we decided to start using quantum machine learning, the quantum models, to understand if I've got a Hamiltonian theory that is very complex and you need a 3-4 body interaction, and that's difficult experimentally, I can find a 2-body Hamiltonian that can represent things of that more complex Hamiltonian model. That's a frame we work on a lot with people in Madrid, and we've seen that there are some properties, quantum properties, that are very interesting. For instance, we've learned that in most of these quantum machine learning algorithms, you've got to do optimization, that means minimization to reach plateaus, Barren plateaus we call them, and we've seen that quantum technologies can help to do things differently, and that's what we are working on in Quantum Spain, and machine learning. José Ranilla from the University of Oviedo. I'm going to change the tone a little bit. The group I represent here at the University of Oviedo started in quantum computing by chance. We were at a conference and there was a speaker talking about superposition, treatment, gate circuits. And I went back to Asturias and I thought, what's all this about? And that was 10 years ago. And we wondered when we started, this was 2016, 2017, when I spoke to Alba, 16, 17, the IBM quantum chip, Qiskit was presented, and together with the Principality of Asturias Technological Center, we decided to set up a quantum simulator that began to work in 2018, and it simulated up to 38 qubits. We had the tool, we'd learned, and we began to work. And within Quantum Spain, our role is in quantum machine learning, and in order to not say things that are not understandable, we're focusing on high-energy physics in collaboration with the CERN, and then something which we call the noises of the human body. Through audios of the heart and the lung with quantum machine learning, we try to improve the machine learning detection systems for diseases. That's a struggle, but we're making progress. And then finally, we're looking at beginning to apply quantum machine learning to time sequences, because there are many environments where there is a time element, and we're making a huge effort and we're very enthusiastic. And now we're going to go to Daniel Manzano from the University of Granada. My name is Daniel from the University of Granada. I'm the head of the Thermodynamics and Quantum Computing Group, a small group, but we've grown. 7 years ago, it was just me. So any growth was positive and significant. And part of that growth was thanks to Quantum Spain, because when this project began, there were only two of us, Juan Bermejo and myself, and thanks to this project, we hired our first postdoc student. Our network began to grow. We've grown in the last few years, and we work on quantum thermodynamics and quantum computing. We mix those two things together. We're looking at simulation of thermodynamic systems in quantum computers. And within Quantum Spain, we work especially on quantum machine learning, which is very fashionable right now. And we collaborate with the AI department, which is very strong in our university. And we've got several lines of research open. Some have to do with time series analysis, what Armando has mentioned, variational algorithms that are very fashionable right now, and we're exploring all those things, all those possibilities. Thanks, Daniel. To continue with you, if we take a step back for the audience into more general ground, could you explain, we talk about quantum machine learning, but it's not always understood to be the same thing. What differences are there, and how do you approach it? Well, no, often these modern things, we don't ourselves agree. Machine learning, I've classified it under 4 sections. Normal machine learning, ChatGPT, you got a problem, classic problem. I want to solve this exercise that my teacher's given me. You go to ChatGPT, and it resolves the problem traditionally. Another approach involving quantum science is to use a classic ChatGPT system to help us with our quantum physics problems, to design an experiment, or if I got a status, well-defined mathematically, tell me the properties of this state, which is a very complicated mathematical problem. It's sometimes called machine learning for quantum because it's classic, but the problem is quantum. Another example José has mentioned, I got heart signs, classic signs from the body in using normal figures, and I want to use a quantum computer that learns automatically to analyze those data, give me information. That is more quantum machine learning. It uses quantum computers. And then the last step would be to mix those two together. We might have a quantum problem. I got a state from a computer, And I want to know whether it's interlinked or not, entangled or not. It's quantum data, and I don't want to go through the intermediate stage of measuring that state, do tomographies, whatever, what have you. So I train another computer to take those quantum data and give me the result I want. That, for me, is where machine learning has the potential to help us. With classic data, probably too, we'll see. But I think it's a very natural application of quantum machine learning. If the data are already data and we can save ourselves the intermediate processing and treat them in a quantum way directly, I think quantum computing would improve a lot. Good. Machine learning, classic machine learning, is intrinsically very different from quantum machine learning because the laws are very different that we apply. I'd like to ask Anna, what parts of quantum information or physics can be of use to go beyond the traditional machine learning? Yes, I think that an experience shows this. There are quantum properties. For instance, quantum interlinking or entanglement can help us. There are intrinsically quantum properties that you can't use in the classic framework, but in the quantum framework, they give you an advantage, and that's very important. And of course, there are problems that can be associated with superposition and what have you. But in our case, we focus specifically on looking at the advantages you can gain for quantum machine learning processes using quantum treatments. And results are very interesting. Are they promising? Yes. And if we carry on with Antonio, I think IA has applications in many fields. It's being applied to almost everything right now. Will the same happen with quantum machine learning? Will it be applied to everything? What do you think? Well, that's a very complicated question, a very hard question. First of all, I want to say something. It's speculation, but it could happen. Potential quantum advantage for machine learning could come on the power side, energy side. Machine learning uses a lot of power, energy. Currently, quantum algorithms, this is speculation, might work the same but consume much less power, which is a very great advantage. But that's speculation. Perhaps we should research that. But I am now entering this field in quantum Spain. If you think of it intuitively, quantum algorithms use the creation of superimposing many different possibilities. That's very positive, but things are not so pretty as they seem because that superimposition of layers you've got to measure. So a quantum algorithm, there's that intuition. For factorization is the clearest example of using superimposition without sure. But at practical level, if you have a picture and you want to know whether it's a cat or a dog, the typical example, at the end of the day, all you're interested in is in knowing whether it's a dog or a cat. That is more simple. All these are problems that we must address. When will this be competitive? Well, the rival that we have, classic machine learning, is very powerful. It achieves exceptional results, and quantum computers are very far from that. So in the short term, I can't imagine that there will be competitive results using machine learning to resolve classic problems. If we continue with the technical needs for these algorithms, not just quantum machine learning, other quantum algorithms, José Ranilla, does traditional AI need supercomputing? It needs supercomputing to work. Will the same happen with quantum machine learning? Well, I am afraid to answer because I've got Andrés from the CESGA, I've got the BSc, and if I say no, I'm in trouble. But I think currently and in the future, the answer is clearly yes, because AI needs supercomputing facilities because its models are very large, millions of hyperparameters, sets of data, enormous sets of data, and that doesn't happen in quantum machine learning, which we're going to need for other reasons. Currently, because infrastructure and instruments that Andrés and the BSc offer us are imperfect, low level of qubits, they have a lot of noise, etc. We've got the problem of quantum memory. So currently we still need a CPU to do quantum simulations and accelerate them. And then on the other hand, within quantum computing there are stages, phases, elements that are not quantum. And that has to go to a CPU, training phases, experiment control, calculation of gradients, etc. All that has to be done on a CPU. So we are going to need it, but perhaps QML should be called hybrid quantum machine learning, HQML, because there will be no infrastructure that doesn't include both elements. Basically, to summarize, it's like what we have now. GPU is an accelerator. So we'll have a machine that has a CPU, GPU, QPU, and God knows what in the future. What else? So yes, of course. Well, we were talking about architecture and computing. This lectures yesterday, I gave a general overview of the different paradigms in quantum computing, but I didn't mention something very, very important, I think. And David Fueco can tell us more about this, which is the use of the other dimensions. We talk about qubits, but we can have more than 2 dimensions in quantum. Quantum systems have more, naturally more levels. I'd like to know what you think about the use of qubits or more dimensions for machine learning and other quantum computing applications. Well, thank you, Alba. Instead of using noughts and ones, the idea is to use 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, more information in a single computing unit. That's quite an old idea. Our contribution within Quantum Spain was to develop algorithms aimed at AI tasks. A simple way of explaining this is to say, Tony, I think, mentioned this, is to classify cats and dogs in AI, using AI. There are 2 classes with 1 qubit. If it's 0, it would be a cat. If it's 1, a dog, or the other way around. But if you have more levels, well, you can classify more classes. You can distinguish, I don't know, the breed of the dog in the case of this example, this basic example. Also, we said that maybe within a qubit there's more information than within 2 qubits, because a qubit can be called a sphere, Blows sphere it's called. The 0 points northward and the 1 points southwards. But then there are many intermediate points. We could orientate the information of the qubit not to 0 and 1, but to other points of the sphere. So that's a fascinating problem. How to place different spots or dots, separated dots within a sphere. So students that are associated with Quantum Spain took this very seriously, and they developed a generic algorithm to find those dots. Mathematicians have studied this a lot, because if you're talking about a sphere, if you're talking about a qubit, you can have spheres with more dimensions. That's called Sloan's game in mathematics. I won't bore you. They wrote a paper to use classical methods, genetic methods, to find this, and now they've optimized the process, and there's a competition. I don't know whether we haven't spoken about world records in Quantum Spain, but there are more than 100 records regarding these packagings, and these students have got 30. There was a professor at the MIT that had 90, I think, but now there are 30 more record breakers. And we also work on classic techniques to simulate quantum systems. We try to accelerate Monte Carlo algorithms. Instead of calculating normally with the wave function, calculating with data, experimental number data generated in Monte Carlo simulations, so that a machine, in this case a classic machine, gives you the observable that you want, instead of doing it the conventional way for it to learn and give us the magnetization of a certain material, the level of magnetism. And we're using 2 experimental platforms in Spain at the INMA with molecular qubits, and another platform that was launched yesterday, Daniel's team in Oviedo, with Rydberg atoms. And we got another project with the University of Barcelona to do this kind of thing. So it's machine learning with qubits, and specifically using the machine in Oviedo. And to thank this round of comments, Armando, what limitations does quantum machine learning have? Because we have to use imperfect machines that have noise, lack of coherence. What defects do we have, and how can we resolve them? Well, to say it briefly in one word, or in 2, a lot. It's a very complicated, difficult word, because if we think about the natural extension of neural networks within the world of quantum mechanics, there are several issues. In general, this is something that always happens when the quantum world has to speak to the classic world. You've got to load classic data into or enter classic data in a quantum computer, and that's not enough. That's called QRAM. But we're used to the classic settings, but in the quantum world things are different. They require a lot of resources, and with the resources we have today, that is difficult to achieve. So that's a bottleneck. Then if we continue with variational circuits, they have an issue which has been pointed out by Anna, that what's known as the Barren plateaus, or plateaus. We imagine there's a Gilbert space like a country, and our treasure is in a valley at the bottom, but we don't know where the valley is. So we start to go through the country, the landscape, and we go into infinite plains, and we don't know how to get out of there. That's a problem that emerges often in variational circuits. In variational circuits, transcripts would be more simple, more immediate. The transcripts of those neural networks, that's a problem, an issue. There are some papers that are beginning to look into this. One of the elements is, well, people say, we've entered this enormous space that we have to explore. Maybe that was the mistake. Maybe we didn't enter the area where we had to enter. If we knew where to begin, it would be more simple. So we've got that problem. And then we've got the problem of, well, at the end of the day, you've got to interpret data. You've got to do a series of operations that are measured, and that's costly too, because for each datum that we want to train for the machine, or the machine for, requires a lot of metrics. So that's another bottleneck. That bottleneck can also appears in other kinds of quantum machine learning, which are called unsupervised. No, sorry. the one I'm going to mention now is called reinforced learning. And we give the machine a series of prizes, or the algorithm a series of prizes, or we reward it so that it learns. So that it learns, for instance, to drive a car autonomously. But we've got to train it first, and we've got to tell it as if it were somebody teaching you to drive. You can do this, you can't do that. I'll give you X number of points for this, X number of points for that, and that interacts with the classic world. And that's called an environment. And every time those bottlenecks come up, there's that interaction with the classic world. And bottlenecks once again emerge. And also, of course, all this has to be considered within a context that has already been mentioned. It's come up often. That acronym, NISC, the computers we have, they don't have a high level of qubits. They have more noise. We don't achieve the threshold we need to do error correction. We're still a bit far removed from that. And there are all those bottlenecks. But we should not lose hope. I think it's a new field. It began at the end of the 90s, beginning of the 2000s. And there's still a long way to go. I trust my confidence level is similar to my confidence level regarding quantum computers. The problems are similar. That is why we're investing so much money in this, because a lot of people believe that this will be achievable in a matter of a few years. I think there's also a problem. There's a lack of inspiration or ideas. We haven't really found algorithms that allow us to say, there's a clear advantage here. Quantum algorithms that have a clear advantage. I'm talking about machine learning that have a clear advantage. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but the interesting thing about what we've been working on is this. There is much to do yet and to experiment on, so that's why it's such a fascinating field. Before we finish this session, we must finish because if not, we'll run late. I wanted to open up for questions from the audience. Two very quick questions, and I'd ask you to be brief in your replies. We've got a question. Think about it. Or a message that you want to give us before we close, each one of you. My name is Eva from the University of Granada. I'm a doctor in quantum technologies, computational neurosciences. I'm tremendously happy to see Daniel here from the University of Granada. My question, you've been talking about Barren plateaus, navigation in multi-dimensional space, Hilbert spaces, where you need a compass to know where you're going so that algorithms converge. I was thinking
Neurociencia, ¿no? Que lo estoy incorporando últimamente.
I was thinking of incorporating all this into some of my recent research in such a way that you can navigate those multidimensional spaces, because a neuroscience paper this summer said that the neurons in the dorsal premotor cortex find each other and coordinate in order to find the optimal solution. They do exhaustive searches and what have you, and this helps us to solve classic machine learning problems like catastrophic oblivion and memory at work or episodic memory. It can help us to resolve many of these classic problems. So are you going to incorporate neuroscience into this research, into researching the improvement of machine learning? A very quick answer, please. Hello. on our side, we're working on this because in my department, I'm in physics, matter physics, physics of matter. And there are a lot of people working on biological neuroscience, Miguel Angel Muñoz and others. We've done preliminary work, but the problem is that neurons are intrinsically nonlinear. That's why they have the ability to learn, whereas quantum computing, our operations are linear.
Hay que inventarse maneras.
So we've got to invent ways of finding non-linear patterns. So this is something that we're researching into very much. Other groups are working on this, and that is something that is still, it's early days. A very quick question. In one of these quantum Spain seminars, Zoe Holmes, this young woman, explained that there's almost a theorem that says that we have to coexist with barren plateaus, in which case you have no advantage. Or if there are no barren plateaus, well, then you've got to address things classically. There is not much room for maneuver. So I would like to know what's left out in your field of activity. Is this, if this is true, this dichotomy, would this leave machine learning in general out or not?
Who would like to try to answer? Well, you should, Anna, yourself. I don't think it leaves everything out, no. Well, it's true that the Barren plateaus seem to be exclusive. And if there are no Barren plateaus, classically, you could simulate everything. But they're very specific items. I don't think they will bring down the whole field, but they do reduce it drastically. So I agree. You need to look for inspiration beyond variation algorithms. It's been a good tool, but in the longer term, you have to go beyond that. But I have a question for you, back at you. The classical AI is being discovered by means of theoretical support. Do they have theorems backing it up? Or there are things that are happening with AI that we just could have intuitively some idea that it could happen, but we didn't have a formal demonstration. I couldn't be like that. I don't know. Don't ask me about classical AI. I know about a new theorem or proof that something is happening. Yeah, but it's the other way around my approach. No. What I mean is that probably we still don't have the full theoretical support of quantum events and quantum physics that we just do not see now. And when you compare mature technology against a maturing technology, of course we're at disadvantage. Well, okay, a quick take-home message, if I may, now that I have the floor. Please be patient. Science takes its time. It advances at its own pace. Let's not destroy it before we achieve the crucial points. Patience and money from society. Please, let us work. Anna? I agree. We do need patience. And also prudence. You have to be cautious and prudent with what you try to promise. There should be a balance between promising and delivering, because if you don't have a scientific basis, you won't deliver. And the patience, okay? And finding that equilibrium is not always easy. I think that the most interesting thing in this field is not only whether classical machine learning or one or the other, but the complementation between both. We've been seeing what can be computed or optimizing is, for example, we use it a lot in materials.
Una pregunta realmente profunda de qué.
And the intersection is very interesting. Instead of asking what may and not may be learned by means of quantum computing. I would like to say the following. First, if we think about what happened in artificial intelligence, many of the ideas existed many years ago, and it's only when hardware was powerful enough that we could perform them. Well, something similar will happen with quantum machine learning. And if we think in the very, very, very long term, to quantum computers actually being consolidated, then it is conceivable there will be a generation of a huge amounts of quantum data, and in the very long term we will need quantum machine learning to deal with huge quantum data. It might be in the very long term. I will be very brief. I support the idea that José Ignacio mentioned yesterday. I'd like to have a European center for quantum computing and data management. I think that would be lovely. Yes, please, let's be patient. I join the request for patience because competing against classical artificial intelligence right now, it's just impossible. We can carry out very small experiments and the comparisons just make no sense. I'm sorry, it's too soon. Let's see whether we can do things that in the future be scalable and competitive. And also a request. Don't try to fit us in the already existing models. I work in variational algorithms. They're very popular. And as soon as everybody's popular, everybody's working on it. And let's diversify. Some people should do something else with new ideas, further away from classical paradigm, and explore new avenues of innovation. We really don't know where the advantage will be coming from. Thank you very much, and a big hand to everybody. Our next roundtable will discuss quantum-inspired algorithms. There's many of us. We had to cut down on the discussion. We're sorry if somebody has time left to ask after the session. Please continue the discussion. Now we're going to talk about quantum-inspired algorithms. Quantum computing has not only allowed us to understand new algorithms and new properties, it also has led to the development of classical computing beyond what we already knew about. Quantum-inspired algorithm has incredible applications that the speakers will discuss. Roman Orus, the professor at the Donostia International Physics Center. David Pérez García, professor of the Complutense University in Madrid, part of the Institute of Mathematical Sciences, Diego Porras, the head researcher at the CESGA, and Artur García, the leader of the quantum group of the Barcelona Supercomputing Center. Please introduce yourselves and explain briefly what you've done in this direction. Thank you. Very good morning. Good morning, everybody. My name is Roman Orus. Yesterday I was talking about the multiverse, and now I'm talking about different things that we perform at the Donostia International Physics Center. I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm also a scientist, okay? Most of my academic career has been devoted to quantum-inspired algorithms. We call them now quantum-inspired algorithms, but we always call them tensor networks, right? We agree. I've been in simulation of condensed material in phases of matter, algorithms for new states of matter, especially in high dimension or 2 or 3 dimension systems.
Materiales que puedan ser
topological systems that could produce materials useful for quantum computing, and also simulation of quantum computing with this type of tools, which are the most powerful we have nowadays to simulate quantum computing and to validate whether there is an advantage or not, and also the applicability to artificial intelligence. I explained yesterday it's a new field. We realized that the same techniques can be used to improving on AI, and that's what I'm working on right now. Hello, my name is David Perez Garcia. I'm a mathematician. I was lucky to get a postdoc with Antonio Cirac. I coincide with Diego and Roman, who was visiting, so we met at the same time. And that's where they were seeding these ideas that finally bloomed with tensor networks. I was lucky. I was at the right time, at the right place. Then I went to the Ramon y Cajal Institute, who set up a group of mathematics working on quantum computing, and that's the group I'm currently working at. We're basically focusing on the problems that we have for quantum information, but from a very, very mathematical basis. Basic science, where we're underpinning that. We're mathematicians. We're really laying foundations on tracing localization and Terra complexity problems. And most of our endeavors have to do with the connection of quantum information and the many-body quantum systems. And there's a clear connection. Tensor networks are the link in that world mathematically, and you can understand the many-body problems with quantum ideas and quantum laws, and the problem that we're interested, as many mathematical physicians are interested, is to understand and classify all the quantum phases of matters that quantum physics predicts. Mathematicians love to classify, well, that's what we do. And quantum information, of course, plays a very important role in the tensor networks as well. Tensor networks are the best tool to understand it, but it also goes the other way around. We can study the many-body problems, and we can understand how noise works in these systems, and work the other way around to prolong the memory times in quantum memories to understand how noise works. A quantum computer in itself would be a many-body system, right? That's what we do, analyzing how tensor networks as a mathematical tool that best describes the quantum many-body problems. We have devoted the efforts to develop that mathematical theory to understand how the elemental constituents, particularly symmetries of the bodies, affect the tensor networks. And then we became part of Quantum Spain a few years ago, and we realized that understanding it for symmetries, if you use tensor networks for machine learning, we gave guarantees of privacy by tensor networks much larger than normal neuronal networks. It's not a question of gaining advantage over neural networks and other things, but they have additional properties such as interpretability and privacy, and that's what we're exploring using all the mathematical theory that we developed. Hello, I'm Diego Porras. I come from the Fundamental Physics Institute, just 5 minutes away at the CESGA. We have quantum-inspired lines of research. We have optimization by means of quantum-inspired algorithms, and also the line for quantum matter states by Juanjo Ripoll. And we have eclectic vision of quantum-inspired, well beyond tensor networks. Quantum-inspired algorithms include any algorithm using the principles that we learned about in variational quantum algorithms. And at the very end, if you want to solve a problem, you have to keep an open mind and go beyond your area of comfort, if I may use that expression. You need to coordinate the algorithm with other methodologies involving the problems you're dealing with. So we arrive at this field from the development of variational quantum algorithms. We started working on them a few years ago. In the beginning, we tried to apply these algorithms to optimization problems, quantum annealing, and others. And we realized it's a very interesting topic. We still have some research on it, but there were short-term restrictions. If you try to solve problems that have an industrial application, you realize that the real-life problems had other constraints and limitations, continuous and binary variables mixed up together in the same place, and they were difficult to fit in traditional quantum variational algorithms. We continued to research, and we saw that many of those ideas could be transformed with quantum-inspired algorithms. We could get the ideas that we had developed for the variational algorithms, for example, to break down and divide problems into different sectors, right, with some easy, more direct access problems and the combinatory problems, and that work had already been done for quantum variation algorithms and could therefore be recycled for quantum-inspired algorithms that could solve many of these problems. So it was a very promising approach. And in fact solves a huge family of problems with impacts and applications in the finance world, machine learning, biomedical areas, biomedicines. And so we founded this group for using these algorithms, and we're still working on it. And Quantum Spain as an initiative was a great support to promote this research, which would have been very difficult to undertake otherwise. Artur, my name is Artur Garcia from the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, BSS, and as we indicate, we are researching supercomputing. It's a very powerful hammer, and we thought about the most significant contribution to the interaction between computing and quantum physics. Google had just reported the first results that they claimed to show quantum advantage, and claiming that the results could not have been obtained with the supercomputers like Frontier in tens of thousands of years. And yet, the community reacted, and in 2-3 years, we have discovered new methodologies to carry out these operations, the same operations in supercomputers, and these techniques can be applied even at your laptop. So we've been talking, and we could have reproduced Google's claim in 2009 on a laptop. Well, that's been a great inspiration, and it's what's happening in the field of tensor networks. We need HPC, the techniques, the codes, the repositories to manage large-scale tensor networks, and now that you train with a network of GPUs, not a single one, and these have used many different codes that we all developed by ourselves with MATLAB, We need a greater ambition of sharing and lead the field to a very competitive collection of codes. And the algorithm part will probably be exhausted in a few years. In the next years, in the future, we will not have additional methods to manipulate or improve upon tensor networks. We will need the brute force of the libraries and repositories that we've been developing under the framework of Quantum Spain, and that was the most relevant contribution. Well, thank you. You've already answered the questions I had ready. That's wonderful. I'd like to underscore what was mentioned, that tensor networks can be applied to artificial intelligence. Rowan, you know a lot about it. Could you explain perhaps how can we best use them? Maybe from the quantum-inspired, we developed the tensor networks, and now we'll apply it back again to the classical AI? Yes, it's quite surprising, actually. The tensor networks, this kind of quantum-inspired techniques, change and rediscover it anew from different fields in condensed physics, in quantum physics, and so on. The tensor networks describe the structure of the correlations between inside a complex quantum state with many atoms or many qubits, for example, or for the fundamental matter states of the matter states. And that complex configuration is not as easily described as when you have only 2 qubits, and you need these mathematical tools that, as I mentioned, has been rediscovered many times. From a theoretical point of view, physicists realized that this could be used to have simulation algorithms. We could simulate quantum computing because the structure was deficient. If you try to simulate a quantum computer, you can't, not by natural methods for many qubits, but with tensor networks you can do it because it has a more efficient description of the correlations. But the mathematical structure, as it is, it's universal, of course. It's a mathematical theorem. It is not exclusive to quantum mechanics. It is shown in anywhere where you have highly correlated or entangled structures, and in particular in machine learning. In machine learning, you look at the mathematics of neural networks, you see different layers, transfers, non-linear functions, and it's a lot of linear algebra and non-linear algebra, and there are some specific items that are very similar to what we saw in quantum computing when we try to simulate a quantum computer of a large number of dimensions. And the bottom wells could be solved in the same way as we did with quantum computing. You can assume an internal structure described by tensor networks, and since it is an efficient description, we can manage the algorithm for artificial intelligence that also occupies less storage as memory goes concerned. You can test it out, and it actually works. That's why everybody is investigating on AI. And it's beautiful in science. You work on something very focused, for example, tensor networks for condensed matter, for example, and suddenly you realize that the technique that you've been using for several years can also be applied to other fields, to another field that you just didn't even think about it. It's happened many times with tensor networks and also with quantum mechanics as well. Okay, how can you switch fields from one area to the other? David, you're a mathematician, not only for tensor networks, but from mathematics. You can gain some insight into understanding these techniques and other physics and quantum computing. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. That's an interesting question. One of the beautiful things of tensor networks, the so-called quantum-inspired many-body problems, is that they have mathematical rigor in their theorems that can be tested out. The fundamental states of low-energy states could be approximated by tensor networks. It's not only an intuition. You can demonstrate from a mathematical point of view, and the topological characteristics of all the different phases of matters can be localized and described by the tensor network. And you can demonstrate, mathematically speaking, that if you have this topological state, they are robust against disruptions. And these are all mathematical theorems that are quite solid and robust, that go beyond the straightforward applications like neural networks and biomedical applications. So that was the possibility to apply these theorems to have a strict mathematical knowledge on machine learning. Now we can understand this for neural networks, perhaps not so powerful for all the different functions, but we can understand the function of each tensor network for all the field, and we can test out symmetries and look for interpretability or privacy issues that are mathematically rigorous, and that's what we're doing in quantum Spain. But this could be applied, of course, with everything dealing with quantum computing, but theoretical quantum computing has been mathematics and theorems, and that's why we're involved in the field, of course.
Hemos hablado mucho de que esto tiene aplicaciones en IA.
We talked about the AI applications, and you also mentioned this could be applied to other disciplines, not only quantum, physics, or artificial intelligence. Could you explain an example where tensor networks could be applied? And a general question, is there anything in which tensor networks may not be applied. You can model any which kind of problem into tensor networks descriptions. I'm not the greatest expert on tensor networks. I think the other panelists know more about it, but I could say that generally speaking, the so-called quantum-inspired changes in the application. The key, if I may qualify your question, both for optimization and in tensor network use, would be to compare what we actually do with what is the state of the art for each application. In the case of tensor networks, they apply to number analysis and optimization endeavors in our group. We have combinatory optimization research, but for each to have a true impact, a true outreach, we have to make sure against who you're competing. As Tony said before with AI conventional comparisons, right? There's a field here which is competing against a mature area. We have to find niches where specifically we may show an advantage, not a quantum advantage, but at least an advantage with quantum-inspired algorithms. I can give you some specific examples. In combinatory optimization, we have shown advantage against the state-of-the-art in some particular problems, very particular problems of optimization with continuous and whole numbers in financing, for example. And here we have seen that many of the techniques that you compare against commercially available simulators, you can find solutions which are better and easier. And in the case of tensor networks in variable analysis, there are promising applications in partial derivative equation solution, and what I'm specialized is, which is combinatory optimization, with this very strong effort to compare ourselves against the usual commercially available solutions. But if we're looking for an immediate validation, we always have to validate and benchmark ourselves against other applications that are mature already to show that we're just doing better than what is already available. And Artur, you said in your first intervention that we could have simulated the quantum supremacy experiment in a few minutes now, back to what the claim was in 2019. Maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot, but quantum computing, what role will it have if we're all improving the techniques and we have higher supercomputing power? Will we end up by simulating anything we want, or there is a possibility I'm risking the future of the field with my answer and my job too? No, of course not. That's an internal joke that everything is a tensor network, but some are just too large. We cannot simulate. And the quantum computer is a very, very large tensor network analyzer, many dimensions. And so I'm very happy with my job. There's been a change in our attitude. We had a clear image in the past that there were clear limitations, and there was a relationship with the physical properties like entanglements, and highly entangled systems were very difficult to simulate. But now we know that we can simulate high entanglement states, and the criteria to set up a cutoff level is not very well defined, at least in my instance, it is not, and this is a frontier that needs, that deserves to be investigated. That's going to be difficult. We won't be successful with simulation, but there are many other problems. Basically, we have the same problem as neural networks have. They're very parallelizable systems, but at the end, we do solve them with a conventional matter. The brain doesn't work the way we do it, and we wish we would have a different technology to gain the better understanding of those calculations as the true neuronal networks work. There are different architectures TPU and others, which are computational works that could multiply the abilities that we have and go beyond the current paradigm of tensor network operations. But that's ever changing in the future, and I think it's a good opportunity for research. We have time for a couple of quick questions from the floor. I can see 3 of them. Please be brief. José Luis Rosales, Polytechnic University of Madrid. I'm not representing my university. I'm very proud. I was the disciple of a wise man, José Luis Sánchez Gómez. He would ask many questions that I just can't ask myself. I had an opportunity a few days ago.
Pablo Jarrillo.
At the MIT meeting, I heard something of the theoretical problem of the magic angle of graphene layers. You remember the magic angle graphene? Maybe you can work with tensor networks, because he was saying that many of these properties, Jaramillo was saying himself, are dependent on the different angles of the graphene layers that they set up, and it's an open problem. Pablo Jarillo is a candidate to the Nobel laureate. Had the opportunity to meet him, and I was very excited to see that there are problems of this kind still needing a solution. And on behalf of my professor, if he were here or if Feynman were here, he would ask you, what did I do wrong? Because Feynman discovered that it was impossible to simulate a quantum state, a quantum computer with a classical computer, and he would probably say, what did I do wrong? And if he were again to try to draft his famous article, what would he say? Well, an open-ended question. I'd like to comment on what you said of Pablo Jarrillo and the two-step bilayer of
Interesante, y tenemos un par de proyectos.
Graphene layers, and it's very interesting. And we've got a project to simulate this angle for graphene layers. Technically speaking, they have complex properties to simulate with tensor networks. It's being complicated, but we hired somebody on it. And Feynman, I don't know whether you want to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it. I do not dare to speak on behalf of Feynman. Well, we can simulate to a certain extent, not generally speaking. It's a classical technique, and we know that there is a limit to it, of course. And so onwards, we just won't be able to. Something we can say. Number factorization is difficult, but we do it, right? The problems are complex, and amongst all the different instances of the problem, the majority of them are easy and approachable. The most difficult problems will always exist, and even with the supercomputer and the most powerful quantum computer, we won't be able to solve them. But we can solve everything else.
Un par de preguntas más, rápidamente.
There were a couple of questions more, 2 more questions at the back. Think about your take-home message. Hello, good morning or afternoon. My name is Darío. I'm a technological investor. I'll be very brief. If I understood correctly, these networks are extremely efficient and are better, in certain cases, than neural networks. Given that fact, what conditions should there be in order for them to be better than classical methods like transformers or generative models in problems like time series? Thank you. Very quickly, can we have an answer? I can begin. I don't think they're better than neural networks. They can be better or complementary in certain aspects, but neural networks are unbeatable in certain aspects, but they're dark, not clearly, can't be interpreted. There are issues of privacy. So for some problems, An intensifier will require less parameters at a cost that is not too great in terms of prediction capabilities. But it's, it carries a cost. Final, very quick question, please. Hello. My name is Paula Garcia Molina at the Quantum Machine Learning Group, and I have been looking into number analysis. One of the problems is representability. It has to do with what Artur said. In what conditions can you use tensor networks? When you look for new applications beyond quantum physics, does it make more sense to do heuristic tests or look for a mathematical basis that tells you that you can use those techniques a priori? Well, yes, we try to guess at problems through simulations, and that has guided us more clearly than analytics. Intuition has guided us sometimes more clearly, and I think there's been mention of this in the previous panel. What changes in many fields is the ability to do number calculations from physics numbers to machine learning. Heuristic models were tested. Sometimes they work. You test them, they work, and you don't know why. I'm in that line of business more than the analytic side of things. Artur, let's have a final round. What's your final take-home message after working in this field or in general? Well, I don't know. I think that maybe I'll criticize the field a little bit in front of everybody. I think we've been lacking joint strategies as other fields have had in order when it comes to developing tools, not algorithms, maybe because it's early days, but other fields like chemistry, computing chemistry, have established joint efforts where everybody contributed to the same code base. We've tried to do it, all of us, and we've ended up in a state of fragmentation, and I think that in terms of computing capacity could have helped us more. Diego? Well, a comment, as Artur says, this is a field that is difficult to define sometimes. If you define it as tensor network applications, it's more compact. But if you're more generous in the definition and you start to include other things that could be applied, the frontiers are a bit vague. It's sometimes difficult to publish papers because the engineers consider that it's too fundamental what you've done. We also find that projects sometimes are not. What we do is too interdisciplinary, and it doesn't fit into any category. And that's a problem, and I think that we should try maybe to work a bit more on defining the field and teach more about what the field is, what the scope is, what can be published. And then I think it's very important because in my experience has been very interesting. There are many applications. What we do has an impact and can lead to immediate applications, and it would be a pity that is lost if we don't define the scope well. David? Well, two things. First of all, from the point of view of classic algorithms, I think it's very interesting to know when it comes to understand what a quantum computer is good for and what not. And Jordan Skaranidis and his team have talked about quantum computers that were better than classical computers, but then a different algorithm was provided, but based on the same ideas. I think that we've always got to have a clear idea of what is purely quantum and what is not, what is classical, because that will help us to define the field. That in general, it's healthy to think whether at times whether we really need a quantum computer or we can do things classically. From the point of view of tensor networks, I think the field is very rich and it can be a bridge between different parts. complexity theory, computer science, mathematics, mathematical physics and computing. Exploring that is a very rich source of research. And Roman, well, to finish, I fully agree with what my colleagues have said, and to go back to what David has said, I'd like to understand to what extent a quantum computer with noise can be simulated or not through tensor networks, because you might have a quantum computer that is really sophisticated, but noise kills correlations, and you have to know what the threshold of noise is. And if the realistic noise thresholds are, with the hardware we have, are adequate in order not to make the quantum computer something that can be simulated. Having said that, I agree with my colleagues in terms of the need for defining the field better. We've been working in silos a little bit, and this permeates many layers, condensed matters, quantum information, AI even now. And since I'm closing this, I'd like to believe that in a few years' time there'll be a Nobel Prize for tensor networks. If it's a question of asking for things, I'd like to make that request. Thank you very much, and an applause for everybody.
Las siguientes, por favor, subid ya.
Next speakers, please come to the stage, and we'll finish with this final session.
Bueno, vamos a empezar esta...
Let's start. I know everybody's in a hurry. We're running late. Let's start and try to shorten things, but there's a lot of us and it's difficult. So they're going to introduce themselves, explain what they've been doing, and I'll have a question for them. Carmen García Almudeber from the Polytechnic University of Valencia. Thank you, Alba. As Alba's just said, my name is Carmina Almudeber from the Polytechnic University of Valencia, where I'm responsible for research in quantum computing architectures, full-stack system development, which was mentioned several times yesterday. What we do is connect as efficiently as possible these quantum algorithms, applications to the devices we have today and the devices we'll have in hopefully the near future. We develop tools for compilation, for instance, that transform these circuits, these algorithms, to adapt them efficiently to the limitations that we have in today's processors, number of qubits, highly prone to errors, limited interconnectivity, etc. We do it for quantum algorithms and for quantum communication network applications, and this was mentioned yesterday, we focus not only on what we have today, but we look beyond. We look towards error or failure tolerant systems that integrate millions of qubits that will be necessary to resolve practical problems and be applied in the real world. Specifically, we look towards what we call modular architectures where there's not just one quantum processor, there are several quantum processors connected through classical communications networks and quantum channels. And the complexity of the system increases significantly in those cases. And we also look at the possibility of introducing error detection techniques and fault-proof systems so that the machines are reliable. And last but not least, thanks to the Quantum Spain project, we began a new line of research, quantum machine learning line of research, from the point of view of increasing quantum processor capacities to optimize a triangle of resources, costs, quantum and classical resources, and costs, energy, and the expression potential of these circuits, the area they can cover or research. And the ability and the potential for training these networks. And this is what we do, more or less. The question I wanted to ask you is that normally when we speak about computing, quantum computing, we focus on algorithms, quantum hardware, but at the end of the day, all full-stack systems involve many more functional layers. What are those layers? Could you explain a little bit better how they're designed? Yes, thank you for the question. This we realized when I began to work in this field 10 years ago at QTech. It was mentioned yesterday, and when we got there 11 years ago almost, everything was based on quantum processors, but a quantum processor per se is not a system itself. You've got to develop all the full stack system. These systems have a series of functional layers that connect the top level with the low level, and simply put, they're programming environments like Qiskit and others that have been mentioned. These high-level languages, they're not so high-level, but I won't go into that allow translation from the top level to lower level languages that the machine can understand, and transformations that were mentioned earlier, and integrate a series of instructions that are executable and that can control electronic devices that send pulses to the quantum processors. Thank you, Carmina. We have now Bruno Julia, member of the Cosmos Sciences Department at the University of Barcelona. Thank you. What have we done? We've done a lot lately. Everybody seems to be very busy with quantum technologies. We've been very busy too. In teaching, we've moved forward together with the rest of institutions in Barcelona with a master's course, and we've contributed to the creation of the master's course and an ecosystem in Barcelona, quantum ecosystem, and in our department of physics and astrophysics, science of the cosmos, our tradition is many-body physics applied to nuclear framework and atomic physics. And in recent years, we have taken up the opportunity of the Quantum Spain program and the complementary plan, and we've set up a small experimental group in quantum communications. We're trying to produce interlinked sources of light in colloidal frameworks and settings, and it's not easy. I'm quite proud of that. But going back to Quantum Spain, we've been able to hire a very talented postdoc student, Manuel Costa, with whom we've collaborated very interestingly and fruitfully and quite pleasantly with Artur Garcia's team and the nuclear physics group at my department under Arnau Rios and Javier Menendez, who are nuclear physics experts. In nuclear physics, there's a problem of many-body problem or issue, which is that we have a lot of neutrons and protons. It's quite a difficult problem to study, and the usual methods are to use layered methods that can be written or programmed as Hamiltonian. What we've done on the one side is to see how we can solve this problem with quantum computers, set up circuits that allow you to do variational techniques to define the fundamental state. And what we've done with Manuel, Arthur and this group is to propose a way of using quantum annealing protocols to solve this problem. And that has been a novelty. Good. In fact, in line with what you've just said, we talk about the digital paradigm in quantum computing, but there are other analog paradigms like quantum annealing. What is the future of those other ways of doing computing? Are we going to use them all? In nuclear physics, many-body, what applications do you see for each paradigm? Well, in the future, I hope we can use everything, but especially since I've got friends that are working in this, and we must point out that one of the first few companies that did things that had to do with quantum computing, quote unquote, there was a company, WeWave, that did quantum annealing. I think it's a very interesting approach, and the way we work is different. We use time continuously. The way you work to generate properties is different from traditional quantum computing. For the problem we're working on, which is nuclear physics, we are still lacking. We are still not able to map what we've written in our papers well and put that on the annealing machines that we have now. The challenges are to get the couplings to be as generic as possible, control to be as good as possible, etc. But it's a way of moving forward that I hope has a future in front of it. Perhaps we're lacking theorems that allow us to ensure that with these annealers we'll have a quantum advantage or whatever, but I think that we can find applications. There is a future for this. It's interesting. Thank you, Bruno. Now we have Pedro Perez, the professor of nuclear physics at the University of Seville. Thank you for inviting me to present the work we're doing at the University of Seville. My background basically is nuclear physics and the study of quantum phase transitions in nuclear physics models and nuclear physics. It wasn't until 2019 when Lucas Lamata arrived at the University of Seville. I spoke to him and we proposed implementing models of interest within nuclear physics in quantum simulators. As a result of that work, we generated interesting results. Our interest was to simulate these systems to identify the different phases of matter. And we proposed a series of correlation functions, and studies of those functions in a quantum simulator allowed us to extract information on the different phases of matter that we could come across. And what is striking here is that to study these quantum phases, normally you have to look at the fundamental state of things, of matter. We've achieved that without having to be in that fundamental state. We can be in any state in the system and still identify whether we are in one quantum phase or the other. Within this context, thanks to Quantum Spain, we hired two people. One is Álvaro Saiz, who is developing this line of research that has to do with quantum simulation of nuclear models. With Álvaro, we introduced machine learning tools to identify different quantum phases within a model. This machine learning was initially supervised, afterwards, subsequently with the Barcelona group, Antonio and Arnau. We introduced also machine learning, unsupervised machine learning techniques. The difference between supervised and non-supervised is that For the supervised methods, we had to give the system information about the different states of matter with their labels. The non-supervised, however, we give it states without labeling those states, and then the machine itself learns and looks for patterns, and it labels everything correctly. We did this within a context of applying a variational quantum algorithm to determine the energy of the fundamental state of this kind of system. That's basically the line of implementing nuclear models using quantum simulators. We have another line of research. We hired another person, Laura Oliveira, who's developing this work, focusing on learning algorithms for reinforced learning algorithms, quantum reinforced learning algorithms. And in this line of work, we use systems open quantum systems, and initially the noise, the scatter effect, which is undesirable, we've found that can be made use of to our benefit because it improves learning and reinforced quantum learning regarding the different states of matter we work with. And a brief question. There are paradigms, this has to do with the previous question, that go beyond digital and analog, and there's a hybridation between both. You've worked on it. Could you explain? Yes. We knew that there were two great big paradigms. One is the analog paradigm, and the other one is the digital paradigm. The analog paradigm, as we know, what we tried to do there is to map a Hamiltonian that we want to study in the context of a physical system, which natively integrates the developments that we have in our Hamiltonian case study. If we have a Hamiltonian belonging to the Java family, we can study at cold atoms. If we got a Hamiltonian with long reach interactions, we can make use of trapped ion systems. If we got short range interactions, we can use Rydberg atoms. So there are different physical systems that fit in well with certain problem Hamiltonian models, and these physical systems natively incorporate these interactions. This is the analog paradigm. The advantage is that we enter less errors. Reliability will be higher, and they're also scalable. In contrast with the analog system, we have the digital paradigm where we manipulate qubits using different gates, quantum gates that we put one after the other. And the disadvantage there is that when you enter a lot of quantum gates, you introduce a high level of digital errors. Reliability decreases. The system is no longer scalable. We gain circuit depth and computing time, but we can lose during that time quantum coherence, so that's not desirable. As you ask us, there's a paradigm that can make use of the advantage of both paradigms, which is a third paradigm, which is the digital analog paradigm, which was proposed by Enrique Solano and Lucas Lamata essentially a few years ago, but it's been developed algorithmically by Miquel Sanz, who's here with us today. This paradigm brings together advantages from both of the other paradigms. It's scalable, less levels, a lower level of digital error, and it makes use of analog blocks together with digital blocks. We use what the analog paradigm can do within our Hamiltonian model, and what is different or has to be modified, we adjust to using the digital blocks. Good. Roberta Thambrini from the Balearic University. She's at Complex System Department at that university. Thank you. Well, a couple of things about myself. I've worked For many years I worked with extended systems, emerging properties like training or development of patterns, digital imprints, zebra to the clouds, synchronization, and in the last few years I've worked on machine learning, but not machine learning from the point of view of computing, but the point of view of physics, use of physical systems. All systems are physical, the gate systems too, but typically analog systems to do machine learning and other types of tasks in general, neuromorphic tasks. I've been working more within, I'll focus on the minor first, associational memory. This is a property that we have in the human brain that has to do with a neuromorphic inspiration. So if you've got a property, you link it to a concept. That's basic for learning. This memory has been studied in quantum systems, and the part we've been working on is to see whether the anharmonic conciliators can induce this kind of behavior. And it's a line led by John Georgi, and I'm active in this line of research to see how we can process machine learning, in this case supervised machine learning, and a method which is known within classical systems as reservoir computing. This reservoir computing is based, I'll talk about the three layers that make it up. There are data that are injected into a physical system and then they are read when they come out. So you can talk about an input layer, processing layer, interpretation layer, entry layer. What's interesting about it is that data can be classical or quantum data. We can use quantum states for inputs. The processing layer is the most interesting and the more fun part of it. We've been playing with systems that include from coupled models with different dynamic phases to oscillators and harmonic oscillators, statistics, different operational regimes. And what is interesting, obviously there's a lot of work that uses gates. Several tests of the paradigm have been done in that regard. And the interesting part with regard to noise, etc., is that this is perhaps one of the few paradigms where scatter effect can not only help you, but in part it's necessary. Why? Because this type of method is to process time series, and especially time series in which you need memory. So you receive data, and the information that you want to take out has to be online. The data arrive and they're processed as they arrive, and that requires memory, knowledge of prior data, but you can't store an infinite number of data. You've got to delete some, so you need a map that can contract and can scatter, and this is very important. So three layers. The output layer is more interesting because the output layer is a linear regression. You do a reading of the system and there are no, in contrast with other variational methods, there is no need to train the machine a lot with the parameters. And I'm going to finish. And this has to do with the advantage that this gives us over deep learning systems, because you've got this entry layer and this exit layer. Can I continue? We're in a bit of a hurry, so could you summarize, please? I wanted to do mention what we've done with Quantum Spain. Before Quantum Spain, we had begun with aspects like using qubits. That was proved in 2017 in theory, but also bosons with Gaussian statistics, because what's important, if quantum mechanics are linear, but coding of information, when you process classical parameters, what you take out is not linear. That's why it works. So even with Gaussian states, it's the most linear thing you can have. You can saturate the information process capacity and do things very well. We knew that from before, and we've worked on this idea and looked at how we can improve this kind of structure in a hybrid layer, which means, what does hybrid mean? Well, one layer is quantum, and the other is a classical machine learning layer with memory to see how they can help each other. And with a student that is now funded by Quantum Spain, we've looked at this with qubits to see what the advantages are. And each layer on its own doesn't do things as well as the hybrid structure. And that's it, I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Roberta. Now let's go to Mikel. In a second, please, can you introduce yourself? You're a researcher at the Ramon y Cajal Center and different centers. Could you present your group and what work you do and what you've been doing in Quantum Spain, and what do you think of this field?
Para ser breve, que oír el ruido de tripas, entonces, voy directamente. Bueno, mi nombre es Miquel Sanz, soy investigador Ramón y Cajal en la Universidad del País Vasco y trabajo en muchas cosas, varias cosas, incluida metrología, etcétera, pero aquí vamos a hablar de computación cuántica. Entonces, dentro de computación cuántica hacemos diferentes aspectos, desde benchmarking de procesadores cuánticos, sobre todo desarrollo de algoritmos cuánticos, que incluye últimamente especialmente para resolver PDEs no lineales y para quantum machine learning. También hacemos fundamentos matemáticos detrás de la computación cuántica, pues, contracción de canales, cosas como quantum singular value transformations, etc. Y particularmente más relacionado con Quantum Spain, lo que trabajamos es en la computación cuántica digital analógica, que propusimos hace unos años, que construyendo un poco sobre lo que estaba diciendo Pedro, la computación analógica, que es mucho más resiliente que la digital, la razón de ellos, hay dos razones fundamentales. La primera es que la computación analógica, tú permites al sistema comportarse según su naturaleza y incluyes el mínimo control necesario sobre el sistema, mientras que la digital tú le obligas a comportarse de una forma que no es natural para el sistema, intentando inhibir interacciones, y eso requiere muchísimo control, lo cual aumenta, como decía antes Pedro, aumenta los errores. La filosofía detrás de la computación cuántica digital analógica es...
Through analogical computing is to let the system behave according to its nature and have the minimum necessary to make it universally, which in general are single qubit rotations, and with that you can substantially reduce the associated errors. So we're developing in Quantum Spain this, extending it theoretically to qubits and applying new algorithms. As the naturally occurring Hamiltonian, you can also use them to optimize algorithms, to deepen them, co-designing architectures and find which is the best and optimal architecture to codify a given algorithm so that you don't need so many swaps or reduce the number of swaps from one language to another, amongst many other things. Thank you very much, Miquel. And now, José Echezarreta, sorry for the mispronunciation, professor of the Technion University of Navarra and member of the mathematical groups of communications. He works on quantum error correction and detection. Well, thank you very much, Manuel. My name is José Echezarreta, and I work as a researcher at Navarra University, the Engineering School of Donosti. I'm going to be brief. The main line of research of our group is dealing with noise in general. We try to bring down the noise, right? And of course, we have the quantum error correction systems, QC algorithms to codify with more theoretical qubits instead of physics qubits and lowering down the error with certain constraints because some technologies don't allow for any given topology, and it's tailor-made to classify and identify the error etiology to bring down the qubit analysis. And in classical algorithms, we have the prediction or inferring the error that has taken place in computing, which is a key element in error correction. And besides error correction, we've been working on error mitigation, which with NISQUID was quite fashionable, that has potential uses as well in the photo machines that will be soon available. And Quantum Spain helped us to consolidate the coding area, which are classical algorithms. As I was saying, they follow very stringent and demanding requirements. So you have to codify very quickly, microseconds, and with very high precision limits. And we have proposed some algorithms. They're very good. One of our students, Antonio, thanks to his PhD thesis based on that, won the Quantum Award by the Spanish Physics Society. That reflects how good he's working. He's now working as a researcher. Okay? Well, thank you. Now, a very quick 30 seconds for a take-home message. Carmina, unfortunately, has to leave, and then a few questions. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry. We're very much in a haste, but our research is also in collaboration with the University of Valencia, UPC, and the Barcelona BSc. My message is obvious, but not trivial. We need interdisciplinary research in quantum research. We need multiple disciplines to have a higher impact, as we have seen through academia, and with a generous endowment of funds. Please. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I have to leave. The only thing I wanted to mention is that we shouldn't forget basic research. When we were finishing the complementary plan, they thought about making a transfer plan because they'd already been working on the basic layer. Well, no, we really have to understand quantum phenomena from the very basic point of view in order to profit from the knowledge in applications, but we have to keep up going with basic research, please. 30 seconds. During these 2 days, the recurrent question is, which will be the winning horse, the winning team? In the hybrid paradigm of both digital and analogical, all technologies will be winner because they all fit into the picture. Thank you. Think differently and experiment. Should I dwell any further on that? Yes. Think out of the box differently because it's interesting to explore different architectures, both analogical and digital, and to experiment on quantum computing. Everybody's trying out new ideas. We started to collaborate with other institutions, and suddenly there's a general interest. Test it out to see whether it works or not, and the theoretical work underpinning it, of course. Michael, a general comment. Quantum computing has many limitations, restrictions, problems, and yet I want to be optimistic because that means there is a great opportunity, a great of work for the future, and there's a lot of things for us to do. So my message is optimistic. There's a lot to look forward to. José, I wanted to mention some of the things that were discussed yesterday. Yesterday we talked about architectures. If we don't have the architecture fixed for NISQ machines, not a fault-tolerant computer, right? Even less. And then collaboration, multidisciplinary collaboration. I want to propose the architecture fault-tolerant proposed by IBM, which will be highly complex. And they proposed on 2029 a quantum computer that will have to be distributed because they want to have 250 logical qubits with 10 refrigerators interconnected. That means it's quantum computing distributor because you just can't have refrigerators in the same lodging too many chips. They have to be solid, so they're close to each other with classical algorithms to decodify everything in real-time basis and to orchestrate all the quantum operations that will be taken up by those distributed quantum computers. So there's a lot of work for all of us and the rest of the world as well. That's my message. We have time for one or two quick questions from the audience.
Súper rápido esta última sesión.
We had to go so quickly in this last session. Would anybody want to ask you a quick question?
Bueno, hola, sí. Muchas gracias por las intervenciones que han sido.
Thank you very much for your presentations. Very interesting. Mentioning the prior roundtable and this one, especially because of Roberta. Some people worked for temporal series in quantum machine learning with digital algorithms, and we also talked about tensor networks to use them for temporal series, and we know that in classical computing there are many solutions. So there is an issue in optimization, saying in the theorem that there is no magical algorithm to solve all the standard problems. What about the niche of each of these algorithms when predicting temporal series from your experience? Yes, that's a very, very general question. It's not clear yet. In quantum systems, how can we use that in the Hilbert space, which has a huge potential? And after the demonstration of the numerical capacity that you couldn't reach with the classical system is missing, we need it. And for tensor networks in quantum Spain, we made use of the master program. A student considered the possibility of tensor networks and this quantum computer, and it didn't do very well. The states were just too mixed, and during a master we couldn't deal with them efficiently. We knew it was theoretically possible, but then it didn't work out. And the niche, we have to think differently and modify our design. For example, in temporal series analysis, in some cases we could do it inserting the training by blocks, perhaps, like there were isolated blocks gathering data, but then we lose the memory, which would be difficult to overcome. It's very difficult to give you an in-depth answer. I just don't have the time for it. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, and we will give all the speakers a big hand. Thank you. Please do not leave. The general director of the foundation is coming. We'll wait just a few minutes.
Hola. Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your patience, for remaining in your seats. I think it's been a fascinating meeting. I would just want to thank all the collaborators of Quantum Spain. It's been a few years of very hard work. We built something beautiful amongst all of us. We were hoping for continuity. Let's rebuild it the way we can, even if it is bottom-up, and thank you. That's all. Thank you very much, everybody, for participating in the project Quantum Spain. Very well. We are physicists, and we want to be promptly, and we know how to do things properly, because I wanted to thank the foundation, of course, and I'm delighted to have the general director of the foundation with us here today, because you know that you like it, and the basic sciences, amongst them physics, has to be supported, and they do. So thank you. Thank you also to Manuel Aguilar, because as Raimundo said, it's made possible to allow physics play an essential role as we have in this foundation. We're out of time, but it has been a year's work that has been possible thanks to the Ramon Areces Foundation. We needed the venue and the infrastructure they have given us, and they have been wonderful hosts, as they always are. Welcoming and helping us. It wouldn't have been possible. We talked with Juanjo, Alba, or both at the same time, but certainly a big hand for Alba, please, in Quantum Spain. During these 2 days, you know, Alba, how very much involved is in everything. Juanjo, too. Thank you, Juanjo. Yes, of course. But I do want to say something as an outsider, because I'm working on something different, spectroscopy and condensed matter and whatnot, but I'm not an expert at quantum computer. But you have shown very clearly during a day and a half how much you have achieved through the program Quantum Spain, how you've been able to connect the full territory from the Basque Country, Galicia, Castilla and Leon, Extremadura, all over. The country, Canary Islands, was also present here, so we're all fully involved, and this was an outstanding achievement. What a pity it will be shut down. I wish you could have continuity, and if you want to, you have our Royal Society of Physics, the support with the talent continuity. If we can support you with the infrastructure that you have, and that the ship won't be taken down at the shipyard, let's go forward. And thank you very much for your attendance. And maybe the first day we had like 400 people. There was a 30% fails. We started 250 in the afternoon session. It went down to 171. This morning, 122. The average is 182, which is a good number, being a 2-day meeting. So thank you very much. And now I give the floor to Juanjo. Okay. Luis has acknowledged and thanked everybody, but I do have to thank you, because this was an event from Quantum Spain. We have to thank Alba and her generosity to open this to the full community and ecosystem of quantum in Spain. That includes many more projects beyond Quantum Spain, and also the organization. It was very easy. You facilitated everything for us. We almost didn't have anything else to do. That's my first thanks. And now, thanks to all of you, the attendance. Now it's the drama of 2025 and all the projects are finishing. No, nothing is finishing. It's just the starting point to go on with our activities. And we have a powerful enough community to keep up what we've achieved so far and look for other joint endeavors. So thank you. Thank you for coming and for supporting the event. Thank you. And of course, when I was mentioning the foundation, Manuel, Azcona, Mati, Vanessa, thank you very much. They're here, because without them, this wouldn't have been possible. So please, thank them. And Madrid is now open to all of you, and with traffic jams, that the president of the community loves traffic jams.